2, 1, good.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. For those viewing, welcome to Town Council, Town of Basalt work session. We are going to take up
recording in progress.
We're going to take up a discussion of what is known as first and last mile connections to raft bus stops and circulation between Basalt neighborhoods. So this is a work session on transportation. We'll probably break around 5:45, get something quick to eat, and then we'll be back for our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. So with that, staff has organized a discussion for us today. We are kind of we're coming back to this after a discussion of how to sort of mix connector sort of service and circulator service to make sure we get best utilization of our transit system. So Ryan, why don't you guys take it from
Sure,
here?
yeah, so, and we do have Travis Gleason from the Downtowner on the screen this evening. We wanted to bring him, just thought that he just would be able to answer questions and things that came up, so we can kind of bring some finality to the conversation for you all. But after the last meeting, we did go back and chatted with Travis, the mayor and I did, and talked to him about the conversation we had at the last work session. And then, I think we got some good information back to him, and then we did ultimately get an amended proposal. So we kind of have 3 different options for service. And at this point in time, I went back and listened to the video to try to make sure I got everybody's thoughts and direction on what they were thinking for this service or questions, just as far as direction. And talking with Travis was really useful, kind of getting some information on fixed routes versus doing the on-call service, last mile versus doing somewhat, to destinations beyond just a BRT. And for now, just as a heads up, what we did is trying to do a fixed route at this point in time was discouraged, and thought that, as a pilot project, what we would focus on is that the on-demand service. And part of the reason they would be collecting data throughout the year for this that would sort of inform an idea of if it made sense to do a fixed route beyond. If there was one route that got used quite a bit versus another. And so we would be able to, come back to council and talk about that in the future. But one of the issues with it right off the bat is it does put a lot of wear and tear on the vehicles. You end up having empty vehicles at times. And so, I think as a pilot, Travis really thought that going with that on-demand service made a lot of sense. Keeps the costs down and allows them to use the 2 vehicles that they've proposed in the proposal that we have here. So what I thought we would do is just ask Travis to pull up the proposal. I know you all have it in your packet, but he could share his screen there. We could just walk through it briefly just to get everybody up to speed, and then allow some time for Q&A just to get everybody acquainted and kind of figure out about next steps, and probably have just a brief discussion about budget as well. So with that, Travis, were you able to catch all that?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the introduction. Hey everyone, I'm Travis Gleason, one of the co-founders of Downtowner. You probably are familiar with our program that we run up in Aspen. I did live in Basalt for a couple of years, and have a pretty good lay of the land there, and some of the kind of hurdles around getting to and from the BRT station and some stuff like that. So I've definitely experienced firsthand some of the challenges of Basalt. So yeah, happy to provide this proposal and hope it's helpful and can continue the conversation. So I can share my screen now and kind of run through this, and please jump in with any questions. Happy to make this very conversational, and I'll just basically talk through the proposal that I think you all have there in front of you in print form. So if that sounds good, I can go ahead and share my screen.
Okay. Travis, are we going to see your handsome face, or so far you look like Mr. T to us? Just the letter T is on the screen.
Oh yeah. If you'd like a visual,
Yeah,
I can certainly do that before I share my screen here.
Nobody knows who Mr.
Recently
T
got a
is.
haircut, so it's great timing.
Woo. There we go. There is a person.
Yes, I'm not a robot. I'm a real human. So I do exist. So yeah, happy to share my screen here, and then we can get rolling.
Good.
So can you see the cover page here?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So yeah, as mentioned, we're talking about an on-demand type service. Point A to point B, requested either by using an app or a call-in service. So you can call in if you don't want to use the app, but the app's kind of the main way to request a ride. And there's a little bit of background on our company here and our example program. Obviously, I'm guessing you're all pretty familiar with the program up in Aspen, but just some info there on that program. But what we're talking about for Basalt really is, making sure that we can fulfill a few different needs. I was brought up to speed on kind of the needs we're looking to fill, and basically, the first last mile to and from the bus stops was a big one. Getting people in between kind of the Willits area and, kind of Old Town Basalt area, and making sure that people within those neighborhoods can easily get, to and from kind of those different centers of activity. So that's what we're really looking at here is making sure that we can get that first and last mile kind of solved, and then make sure that we can get people, moving between the Willits and Old Town Basalt area, kind of in the easiest, most convenient, cost-effective, way. So in terms of doing that, on demand kind of fit the bill for this one. Just so everyone knows, our firm provides, routes, deviated routes, and on-demand services. So we don't always recommend, on-demand programs. Sometimes a fixed route is the best mode of transit for the job. In this case, just knowing the two areas and what we're trying to do, I think it would be very difficult right off the bat to design a route that's going to fit our needs. You've got a lot of kind of different pockets of neighborhood, and being able to service all of those with one route would be fairly difficult, especially not knowing exactly who our main users are going to be. And also, a route might be difficult to get people to and from that last mile. So when they, jump off the Rafta bus, we want to get them to their place of business or wherever they may live, or maybe to school. Who knows where their end or beginning location is. So without having a whole lot of data to go off of, we typically recommend starting in an area like this with more of a demand response type service, kind of building that set of data and seeing if there are any patterns to, that a route would really service well. So we're talking about vehicles basically not moving unless, they're called for, versus, trying to design a route that's going to kind of fit everybody's need. And then, kind of hoping that people are drawn to that route and that we've done it correctly right off the bat. It's very difficult to change routes once you put them in place. So we kind of like to work off of the data, see if there's really a good fit for a route based on the data, and then, either decide to go with a route or not. And so that's kind of all that, the line of thinking there. So what we looked at was focusing on 3 different options here. Basically year-round service other than May, October, November. Those months could obviously be added. It would just affect the budget. But we were looking to kind of fit within a certain kind of max budget. So, we focused on the months that we thought would be most utilized. And that's, essentially the summer and winter months. So option 1 basically is 3 to 10 daily, kind of gets that afternoon and evening time frames of the day. Option 2 is the 3 to 10 daily plus the 7 to 9 a.m. hour to basically focus on commuters, getting people to and from, the raft of buses. And then option 3 is very similar, but we're just starting a little bit earlier, so 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then we have the 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Time frames. So basically the morning commute hours plus afternoon, evening commute, and kind of the dinner time. So those were the 2 areas that we're focused on is mornings and then afternoon, evening, to get the most kind of bang for the buck in terms of ridership. As I mentioned before, the ride requests, it's through the app or call in. And what we're talking about basically is 2 vehicles. We will have ADA accessibility in one of the vehicles. Both vehicles would be online during all hours of operation. Employee drivers, all the drivers will be, W-2 employees of Downtowner. We would supply all the vehicles and equipment, staff, reporting, on-site management. Our manager for this program would be located, actually lives in Willits, so it's very convenient for him to oversee this program. Service area, looking at the Willits area and extension to the neighborhood there. And then we have kind of the more Old Town Basalt area. And so you'd be able to basically get a ride anywhere within each of these zones and between these zones. So we also looked at running some simulations in these 2 areas and between these 2 areas. So, we basically took the commercial points, mixed bag of commercial points within each area, some of the bus stops, things like that. And then, the housing areas, and generated a mix of rides that would potentially happen in these areas and between these areas, and kind of ran that a number of times during the hours of 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., about 75 rides during those hours with our 2 vehicles to kind of simulate, what would wait times look like, would 2 vehicles satisfy kind of an expected demand during kind of the more, the busier days. So we ran the simulation. Of course, we can run further simulations and randomize, continue to randomize the data and find more information there through that data analysis. But we found that 2 vehicles was a pretty good starting point for this service. Obviously, the trips in between the 2 zones are really where those trips are obviously a little bit longer, take more time, and we do think there'd be quite a few of those trips. So we are talking about shared rides, right? So most of the time our vehicles are probably going to be moving between the 2 zones, basically grouping up all of the pickups in one zone, bringing everybody over to the other zone, dropping them all off, picking up all the pickups in the other zone, kind of going back and forth in that way. Of course, we might have some rides that are, picked up and dropped off all within the one zone, as well as the, longer trips. So the two vehicles for this this operation would be, we're looking at most likely a 12-passenger van, and then a 8-passenger plus 1 wheelchair van. So a little bit larger vehicles than what we're using up in Aspen. And the reason being for that is that we're going to have some of these longer trips. We want to make sure that we can group up, you know, as many parties as possible at once for efficiency, and move them all, you know, over to the other end of town, you know, all in one go. So that's why we want to use a little bit larger vehicles than what we're doing up in Aspen, where the trips are much shorter. So down to the budget, here's those 3 options. Pretty straightforward, laid out here. We have our annual service hours for each option. Obviously, more service hours makes the budget, you know, larger, and you know, the setup costs as well, depending on, you know, fleet or you know, employee number of employees hired, things like that can affect the program setup. Again, all of our drivers are employees of ours and background checked, and they need to go through training and all that good stuff. So that's all included in the setup of getting the program launched. And then we have our operation costs for those 9 months of service for a kind of pilot year here. In terms of branding, the service can be branded with whatever our clients need it to be branded. So it could follow in the downtowner branding. It could be Rafter branding. It could be, you know, Basalt branding. Really, that's totally up to our clients how they want to do that. The name of the app, the name of the service, all that kind of stuff. You know, we can white label all of our, you know, technology, all of our rider app, our vehicles can be obviously branded however we want. So just so you know that it doesn't have to be the downtowner brand. A lot of our clients use their own brand. So just wanted to make that clear. And so that's really the overview. And so, you know, I'd be happy to jump into some questions. I'm sure there are some. So
Staff, or do you want just take council questions, or?
We can do questions, because I would assume there would be some, but we also did receive a note today from Carolyn Kane, who's the library,
You know her?
sorry, is she the president? Is that
No, she's just a
board member? Board member, okay.
she's on.
So on the board member, and calling out a need for a shuttle that was identified in their strategic plan, and they had some specific needs around that. So she had just asked if we might read this to the council this evening. So if you'd bear with me for a minute, I'll read that for you really quickly. Dear Mayor and Town Council, the Basalt Regional Library District Director and Board of Trustees wishes to weigh in on your current discussion regarding initiating bus service to connect Old Town Basalt, Willits, and the neighborhoods within both areas. This evening, we are holding our own 2022 library budget meeting, so nobody from our body is able to attend your work session. However, we do want to give you our input. In 2018 and 19, the Library District undertook a strategic planning effort to obtain feedback from all segments of our community, adults of all ages, children, teens, teachers, nonprofit groups, and other libraries, regarding their use of the Basalt Regional Library, obstacles to use, and suggestions for better meeting community needs. The major takeaways from our focus groups were: 1, the need to solve key barriers to access; 2, increase inclusion of broader populations, in other words, the Latinx community, seniors, preteens, and socioeconomic groups lacking personal transportation; and then 3, expand partnerships with other community organizations and events. The corollary was that people had a hard time describing Basalt as a community, and that difficulty was in part due to the separation between Willits and Old Town. It came as a surprise to us that the lack of transportation in the community to access services, including our library, was listed over and over as a major community challenge by our focus groups participating in all categories. The Library District strongly endorses your decision to bring bus service to Basalt as a means to increase cohesion among separate segments of our town and to address the issues of accessing diverse parts of our community. So,
Duly noted.
yeah,
Thank you.
with that,
Beautifully written, wouldn't you all say? I mean,
She's not watching you, Bill.
yeah. So anyway, we just wanted to follow up with you all. There were a lot of questions, just, it's what amounts to a new service in town. It does look like we may have support through RAFTA to share in the cost of this for at least for, a pilot. And so, it looks like we've got a few more options than what we had last week. So with that, we've got the person that can kind of dive into any technical details you have, or
I was just gonna see, you're trying to get us to choose an option tonight?
I think providing some direction on an option might be helpful, because this is going to have a budget implication for us. So one of the things with our budget is currently it's balanced. So we would either be looking at with the additional services, looking at reserve spending for the 1-year pilot, or be looking at, having to cut something from the budget. So we'll, that's just a heads up on where we are with that. The green team does have, as we'll see tonight, a fairly sizable budget this year. So, we can certainly have a discussion about whether there's capacity within that budget to do it, but that might mean we don't do something else within the green team budget. So just, we'll have to have those discussions. I don't know that we need to get that in depth with it tonight. We could come back to you with some options on budget. But I think direction on where we go so we can communicate with RAFTA in a timely manner would be helpful, I think.
And we have to do the morning service for RAP today.
We think that would be because it's, their interest in it is really as a last mile solution, so we want to present something that's going to work within their
our next meeting's Thursday.
Yeah, and I don't know that when we talked to Dan, I think the idea is you won't take it up formally on Thursday. I guess a subsequent meeting, you would be able to take that up.
That's the
Isn't that what he
impression
said?
that we
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
So anyway, direction would be good to the extent you can, and hopefully you can get a little more educated on what Downtowner can do for you.
Questions, guys? Elise?
So I'm a little confused. So we're talking point to point, not point to Raftus bus stop?
It could be both. So you can do it as last mile, but it's on demand. So if you at your house want to get picked up and get to the
I'm gonna go
BRT
from my
station.
house to the BRT.
Well, you're sort of an exception. You could walk pretty easily.
Be a long ride, a long, arduous ride.
Travis, I live like 50 feet from a bus station.
All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Alternatively, if you
Yeah.
wanted to go to Willits, you could do that. So-
Okay. And then, so this is a question for Travis, because it's sort of operational. Is the idea to try and balance the two shuttles so there's kind of always one in Old Town and always one in Willits? And if one goes the other direction, then the other one goes the other direction, or what's the thought process there?
Not necessarily. I mean, both vehicles can do rides in either zone. They're really just going to go to where the demand is. So, typically we have, typically drivers are going kind of from ride to ride. Hopefully it's, well utilized, and that means the drivers will kind of just be going from ride to ride wherever those pickups may be. But our system tries to be as efficient as it can with the resources. So, for instance, if both vehicles are in Basalt, and there are no outstanding ride requests, and then we have a pickup in Basalt going over to Willits, right? And then we have another pickup that comes in right after that, and it's in Willits. The way to give both riders the fastest pickup time would be to send one vehicle immediately over to Willits and one vehicle, to the Basalt pickup, right? But that wouldn't necessarily be the most efficient way to do it, because we're already going to be taking somebody over to Willits. Our system would line both of those rides up for the one driver. The driver would pick up in Basalt, take the party over to Willits, and then pick up the party that's over in Willits. So, our system is always kind of managing the resources. It's not necessarily going to send one over to a different area just because, there's no driver sitting over there. It's basically not going to have a driver move until there's something for it to do. We're not necessarily going to send a driver in the opposite direction just because one vehicle is going one way. It's basically going to stay stationary until there's something, for it to do. So.
And how has that worked in Aspen? I mean, are riders impatient if they have to wait very long, or what have you seen?
No, excuse me. Sorry, I'm just making some noise. We'll stop in a second. Okay. So, we've had pretty good wait times up in Aspen. Our whole existence there since 2016. People are pretty happy to wait a lot of the time. They're waiting either in their house, which obviously if you're waiting in your house, it's not, it's not so bad. Waiting indoors where it's warm and comfortable. And then on the opposite side of things, they might be at the grocery store and, people are, requesting their ride, when they're getting in the checkout aisle of the grocery store or something like that. So, people are pretty patient, because it's, a very convenient service overall for them. So, we've had great wait times, and we feel that two vehicles will do a really good job, with this size of an area. So we're pretty confident that two vehicles is going to be a great fit. And if the demand is so much that wait times are increasing, that's almost a good problem. If so many people are trying to jump on this transit option that we need to look into a third vehicle in a year or two from now. I think more or less that's kind of a successful problem to have.
In your write-up, you indicated you had 600,000 replies to questionnaire, and you got 4.9 out of 5 stars. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, so those are. So at the end of every ride, the app is going to ask you to rate your experience. So you can rate 1 to 5 stars, and you can also leave us, text feedback. So you can type into a box, whatever you want to say. Those are just the reviews that we get at the end of the rides is what that figure was. So we've gotten very good reviews. Our ratings are really high across all of our services. We have services, all across the country. And so, making a great user experience is definitely at the top of our list of objectives. So convenient and efficient, those are things that we have to balance. And our algorithms, are really designed to do that. So we want to make sure you get picked up quickly, but we also want to make sure we're efficient with our resources and we're not sending, 2 vehicles in the same direction at the same time if we can help it.
So other questions, comments? I had a couple. One, I know this is undoubtedly asking a lot, but this is we're going to certainly be talking about this as part of our climate action plan here, and avoided vehicle miles traveled and, delimiting greenhouse gas emissions. Are there viable hybrid or, I know it's a reach to ask for electric, but are there hybrid vehicles that are available? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so there's a couple options there. Right now, right now, my recommendation is to wait for probably the Ford Transit late next year to come out with their all-electric passenger options for their transit vans. You know, from what I am hearing from our vehicle sources, that should be probably the fourth quarter of next year is when those will be actually available for people. So I think long-term, we would definitely look to switch up the fleet and get some, basically both of these vehicles that we're looking at here are gas transit vans, you know, 8 and 12 passenger. You know, we could essentially swap those two out for the electric versions of both of those, you know, in about a year from now.
Cool.
So I would recommend waiting for that. The immediate options to get more hybrid or electric, hybrid options, you're going to have probably the best way to go is going to be some of the minivans that are hybrid, like the Pacifica minivan. The only downside, downside there, it's going to be less seats. You're basically going to have 6 total seats, and 3 of those are on a bench row in the back. So it's a little more difficult to group up, you know, a lot of people in that vehicle. You know, 6 seats versus say 12 seats, obviously, you know, it's a big difference there. So you're gonna have less capacity with the minivans, which are the kind of the hybrid options at this point. And those are plug-in hybrids, so you know you do get about 30 miles or 40 miles, I believe, you know, of electric before you dip into the gas. But but yeah, again, you're gonna have a lot of the day run on gas, and you're going to have less seats. So, you know, that's kind of the trade-off there. It's not going to be as efficient in terms of grouping rides. And then the only option to go fully electric with like a transit van sized vehicle, they're all aftermarket upfits. So there are a few companies, one's actually in Denver, that we've had some experience with. They do aftermarket upfits where they'll essentially take out the engine and replace it, you know, with the motor, you know, put in battery packs underneath the vehicle and do all that upfitting. They're just super expensive for kind of what it is right now. You know, upwards of like $180,000 per vehicle. Whereas I think in about a year from now, a little over a year, you're going to see that Ford Transit available, you know, with the same range, fully electric, you know, for like a third of the price.
All right, well, that's, you know, we just want to just communicate to you that we're going to be highly desirous of, you know, avoiding V8, you know, 8 miles to the gallon internal combustion, you know, transportation.
So we're definitely super interested in making a change too that's kind of feasible. But yeah, investing in that, you know, $180,000 van when in a year you can get it for 60, it just, you know, we can do it. We can certainly do it. It's just a constraint on the budget, and so we probably recommend against.
Yeah, we'll take this.
It's up to you guys.
We'll take this step at a time, Travis. We got to get the deal approved here, then we'll hone in on the technology. We are. Go ahead, Elise.
So I just want to make one more comment to my fellow counselors as a possible idea. I mentioned in our last session how I felt like we were trying to solve 2 problems here. One is the first and last mile to RAFTA, and the second one is moving bodies back and forth between Willits and Old Town. And I know that we're doing a pilot program to try and understand what the desire is, what the need is, but with the hours that are in these options, it's very much focused on commuters and first and last mile, and not so much moving people back and forth between business centers, retail centers. So I would like to propose additionally, during the summer months from, let's say, July 4th to Labor Day, of having the Saturday, Sunday service run all day, because I think that would be really useful data to have.
Good point. You know, obviously, significant budget implication, but.
Well, and one thought on that is maybe we extend the off-season, the May off-season to be like mid-April to mid-June or something like that in order to offset that cost.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's you know, don't try to respond to that now. I've got to manage time on this meeting here. I think, you know, again, step at a time. I think we have to assess RAFTA's appetite for budget and how much we can expect in the way of help for this. But it's an excellent point. I think it's a great idea. And I was going to ask a companion question with that too, which is that, and you could answer this concisely, you know, in that this is a pilot, we're really going to be looking to this to understand people's desire lines and what the really viable, useful sort of trip generation is going to be. So to that extent, do you have pretty good data capture here? Can you help us out? And will you be able to recap total trips and, you know, sort of origin and destination like information? So that's, and please answer your question, please answer the question in 45 seconds or less. Sorry, but we're jammed here. We're trying to do a lot of different things here tonight, so.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so all of the origin destination data is definitely, you know, stored, and, you know, we can help with analysis of that data. We typically offer that to our clients. You know, that's kind of part of our reporting down here in this, you know, the downtowner will provide the reporting. And so in that reporting is a lot of that kind of analysis of trip patterns. So yeah, all that would be included in this.
And can we add, you know, Lisa's idea, July, August, services, day, kind of high summer season, and give us a flavor for costing there?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to try and work within the budgets that are already generated down below here in terms of kind of maybe you know, not having service in some of April and June or something like that?
I'm getting a lot of head nods, positive head nods on that question. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I'll go with that idea of trying to stick with where we're at and just removing some hours from some more kind of off-season type months.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Travis. So then these are comments, maybe questions, but you know, I think we're going to be interested in some branding for this too. We want this to be conveyed to the public as a RAFTA and Town of Basalt collaborative enterprise here, so that, you know, we love Downtowner, but we want these guys to know that, you know, who's paying for this. And so, you know, we'll get, again, when we get to that point, we're going to want some graphics and some way to communicate that this is a pilot supported by RAFTA and the Town of Basalt. So that's maybe a comment. Then the last one would be another one, if you can answer in 30. You know, when Uber and Lyft tried their experiment a few years ago, what they found was that they had impossibly poor mapping. So don't know what your experience is, whether we are going to be adequate with Google Maps or whatever you're going to use for finding customers, and people say, hey, I live at, you know, 710 Ridge Road, Basalt, I got to get to a meeting at Willits, you know, how about 8:15, blah, blah, blah. Are these guys going to be able to find these people? Do you have, I know that Uber had a wickedly bad experience, you know, with the accuracy and quality. Are you, do you think we can operate on demand with the quality of mapping that we have?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we do pull in addresses from Google, but we're also able to either move those addresses within our system or add or subtract addresses as needed. So we can come up, you know, we have some clients that, you know, they have a private community and all the addresses are not even in Google. They have a full list of just, you know, things that they've just generated themselves. You know, they call this, you know, place XYZ, and it, you know, it doesn't even have an address in Google. So we can add our own addresses in our system and make those searchable. And we can also, you know, tweak existing ones. So, you know, we do use, you know, Google to kind of populate as a base, and then we work off of that. So,
right,
yeah, we
good.
should have no problem on
All right,
that
good.
side of things.
Excellent.
And I guess to go along with that is that, you know, our drivers are coming from, you know, Carbondale, Basalt, you know, Glenwood. They're coming, they know the area. They're, you know, most of the time locals. So I think that's another thing that sometimes Uber and Lyft, you know, it's someone that's coming in from way outside the area and they kind of have no idea where they're headed. Whereas, you know, we try and just hire as local as possible. And so, you know, our drivers kind of live within the communities they work in, so it also helps out in that respect, so.
Good deal. So David has a
Yep.
question.
Well, just a couple quick comments.
okay.
Whatever option we do for the re-engineering option, I think we need to include the morning for the commuters, just to
The
see
6
what
a.m.
that utilization
Yeah.
is and measure that. The other comment I have is I still think we need to do some kind of survey, as it's another data set to see what, you know, people want.
Yeah.
What they use is telling,
Yeah.
but I think the survey is another
We can do both.
inexpensive way
We
to
can
do
run
that.
them concurrently.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
All right, so
Ryan.
one quick question. Real quick, why is adding 2 morning hours $70,000 and adding 1 more morning hour just $10,000 more?
13,000.
So
Approximately.
as far as the really short spans of time go, when you're adding, sorry, go down here. So when you're adding, for instance, 2 hours versus 3 hours, and as opposed to like a 7-hour block of time, when it's an hourly paid employee, one of the things that changes a little bit there is the hourly rate that we need to pay to make it worth it for someone to come in, because they are an hourly paid employee. So unfortunately, you know, for say a 7-hour shift, you can, you know, pay a more of a normal hourly rate to an employee versus if you want them to come in for just 2 hours or just 3 hours, something like that. You do need to increase that rate so that it makes it worth it for them to take that, you know, to be signed up for that shift and come into work for just 2 hours. So that's a little bit of it is one, you know, is the rates changing a little bit depending on how many hours. So, you know, we'd be happy to share kind of the full breakdown if needed of all the costs. Something that we do with a lot of our clients is all of our costs can be actualized. So we have our kind of base fee for providing like the technology and the management of the program. And then everything else is, you know, billed at actual cost. So, you know, if we run less hours or if maintenance ends up being less or, you know, anything like that ends up being less, then the client is billed less because all those costs are being actualized versus just a fixed amount. So we're super transparent with all the costs that go into the program. And obviously we're trying to make it as cost effective as possible, but we also want to make sure that, you know, it's a decent job, you know, for the drivers and the team that's coming in to work the job. And we want to make it sustainable and not something where, you know, you've got
Okay.
a ton of turnover or
Got
you're
it.
hiring, you know, maybe not the best person for the job. So
We got
anyway,
it, Travis.
I'd be happy
Thank
to
you.
discuss that more. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, you guys, just procedurally, is it cricket for us to give informal direction to staff to convey along to RAFTA that we're asking for support for option, whatever we choose? I'd say option 3 would be my motion, but I know we're delimited in what we can do in work sessions. I don't know if that's something that we can,
I think we can
do.
provide that
the
informal
thumbs up.
direction
I
to
like Gary. Gary's got it.
Bring it back for approval later. Yeah, it's
Thumbs up for the option 3.
I'm good with that.
But you wanted it to be
Two, now
modified for
3,
the
now
high
3.
season.
What's that?
I'd like to see the modification
Okay.
for the high season.
Summer.
But again, for the high season, you don't need to start Saturday at 6 a.m.
No,
Right.
yeah.
No, just
Right.
daylight
Right.
hours.
Just kind of
It'd be like
you know,
10 to
Precise.
something.
Yeah.
It's totally different mornings.
We're not approving anything, so
But
it's just.
our presumption too, with option 3, is that if it's gonna cost 363,000, we've got 130, we're gonna split which portion with RAFTA? How much are we asking RAFTA for?
50%, 50% of the total.
Of 360.
And we don't know that they're in
Okay.
on that yet. They've made some
So
some
Bill thinks he knows,
yeah
he knows through the grapevine that,
I know people who know people.
yeah.
there you go. Okay, so basically the town would be looking at an additional $50,000, which is 180.
It's $60,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
And we got money in the green team budget that this is
You can
all about
supplement
green
with.
team. I mean, this is,
okay.
But it does mean, I mean, I think the hard decision for you all is, I think my recommendation is don't go into your current essential services and not do maintenance on something that needs maintenance to try to bolster this.
Yeah.
This is new money, and the green team budget, it's not that there's just a bunch of money in there without ideas behind it. So, you'd want to have, I guess, a look at that budget and figure out what you might not do under that budget as proposed now. And then the other piece to that is, as I mentioned, doing it out of reserves, if it's, a one-time, but of course, we're also looking at our reserves as a very important source of money for the Basalt Forward 2030 effort. And so I just, want to make sure that you all understand kind of what it means if we go for the most expensive option and increase the budget on it. So, but we can, as I said, work on that and bring back some options for you all to look at.
great. So all thumbs up on that, huh? All right.
I'm up for seeing the options.
I'm up for seeing the options, I'm not up for spending the money right yet. How's that?
I just would rather go to option 3 with the idea of potentially doing an all-day thing
During the height.
during the high
Likely.
season.
That
I'd
is
love to
suggested.
see what those numbers really turn out to be.
Okay.
And it'd be good to know if draft is gonna be part of this.
But Travis, what you're hearing is that don't get discouraged here. We're making progress here. We're going to come up with something here.
Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and work on that additional option of moving some of the hours into the weekends from the off season, and come back to you with that. And if you want me to sign out and leave you guys to your discussion, that's fine. I don't know if you
That's cool.
wanted me to stick around here or not.
Yeah.
I think we're finished. So yeah, I'll follow up with you. Okay, Travis?
Summer thing's a great idea.
Okay,
actually.
great.
I mean, that's-
Thanks for your time, everybody. I
we could
appreciate it.
generate half the trip
Thank you.
to,
Appreciate it.
here.
All right, bye.
People are running around.
Okay, so tortas and margaritas in the other room, then we're back here at 6.
That'd be great.
Actually, public, don't take this
Well,
literally.
at least-
These are Reconnected with
Okay.
TV, we're going to fire up this meeting.
4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the October 12th edition of the Town of Basalt Town Council meeting. Welcome, everybody. We've got folks in the audience. Always nice to see people other than on electronic screens. So we're going to start our meeting with a call to order, which we've done, and a roll call vote. Roll call attendance check. No voting.
Let's begin with Ryan Slack,
Here.
Elise Hoddle,
Present?
David Knight,
Here.
Glenn Drummond,
Here.
Bill Infante,
Here.
Gary Tenenbaum,
Here.
and Mayor King.
Yes, here.
The A-team is present, sir.
All right, thank you very much. First order of business is our consent agenda. We have 2 items, minutes from the September 28th meeting, and then we have an action to actually continue the public hearing to Tuesday, October the 26th for the BCC land use application. So we will not be taking that up tonight. That's going to be continued until our next meeting in October. The applicants needed more time to work on architecture and images for the building. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Consent agenda approved. Next order of business is a call for public comment. So I think we have a number of people that may want to speak tonight. And this is a hybrid meeting, so we'll be taking public comment both in person and over the electronic hybrid connection, Zoom connection that we have up. So I'd just like to remind everybody, as you are formulating your presentation or questions or comments to council, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and address your comments directly to the mayor. Identify yourself by name, address when making comments. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive, and town council will make no decision or take action other than to direct town council, town manager, and staff. So with that, I would open the forum for anybody that'd like to address council at this point. So mic is open. Just come on up to the little mic here at the podium, and we're pleased to have you, and like to hear your comments.
And maybe while you're coming up to the mic, just to make an announcement that if you're watching on TV and you'd like to make a comment, the easiest way to join the meeting is the first page of your agenda packet has a Zoom link, and you can hit that and automatically be connected. Or you can call 1-346-248-7799, and the webinar ID is 873-5690-7245.
Hi, thank you for letting me be here today. My name is Kenny Teitler. I live at 206 South 3rd Street in Carbondale, Colorado. And I was talking with Ryan a few days ago, and he mentioned that this would be a good place for me to come talk to you and get to know the mayor and the town council. So I am running for school board for the Roaring Fork School District, and I've been wanting to connect with the town council and to let you know why it is that I'm running for school board, and to see if I could possibly have your endorsement. And I don't know how that works, and if that can be something that you can give me. And my other question, I know you're not to be giving comment, but I don't know if I can leave a card here to further present what it is that I'm doing. And so if you would want to take one of those and pass it on, that'd be great.
Great.
But
our counselor can probably answer the question about endorsements.
Yeah, the town council won't be taking an official position on it, endorsement for your candidacy, but you can certainly listen to everything else.
And can individual members give it, and can it be like they can't use the name of the council then?
Correct. Yeah.
Cannot use the name of the council.
Okay. So anyways, if you would like to just support your name towards me, I would appreciate that too. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Kenny Teitler. I've taught for the Roaring Fork School District for 26 years. I was 12 years here in Carbondale. 12 years here in Basalt, and then 14 years in Carbondale. I taught at the elementary school in Basalt. I started the bilingual program here in Basalt when I first came in 1994. I was here in 1993 and then started the program in 1994. I would like to use the experience that I have gotten as a teacher to bring to the Roaring Fork School District School Board. I think that's a valuable position to be able to have that perspective on the school board. And so that is one of the reasons why I'm running. My other main reasons for running is I want to make sure that we're able to continue to retain and recruit quality teachers. I want to work on closing the achievement gap that exists between our Anglo and Latino students. I have a lot of experience working in both bilingual classrooms as an ESL teacher and teaching for CMC also, and working with Latino students. And I know how important it is to have that communication, and by being bilingual, I'll be able to work on that communication. And then I also want to be a bridge between the community and the schools. And so I would just like to say thank you for this opportunity, and I would like to go ahead and send you an email after this meeting so I could just talk to you a little bit more, and you could reply to that email, knowing that at this point you're unable to give me any response back at this point. How am I running on my time?
You got a minute.
Okay, so I just will tell you a little bit more about how I think the biggest point that is missing right now, I feel, or one of the biggest points, is the representation of the Latino community that we have in our community. If you go to meetings, they're attended almost exclusively by our English-speaking population. And so I really want to work as that bridge to the Latino community, or one of my hopes is to do that, and bring them into the school system and bring them into our community and be able to be that person that can help them reach out. And it's my experience, I have degrees in culture, in cultural diversity and linguistics, with masters in reading with second language learners. And so it's with that hope that I'm hoping to make a difference in our community. And so thank you for being here and the work that you do, and thank you for your support.
Thanks, Kenny. Good night. Nice to meet you, and best of luck. So, next up, anyone in the audience or online like to address council under sort of public comments? Mr. Sugars, come on up.
I think you know who I am. Bill does. Anyway, I'm going to make this as quick as I can. I know it's 3 minutes. There's a fair amount of concern in the community and also on the council, from what I understand, about the affordability of proposed affordable housing. Some cases, some of you folks worked backwards and said this doesn't really add up. There's a proposal on the table for affordable housing in one-bedroom apartments that are more than $2,000 a month. That's a pretty big hit. So I did a little bit of a comparison. I went to the Drake apartment complex at 1500 Spruce Street, Center City, Philadelphia. A one-bedroom penthouse apartment at the Drake, a highly desirable neighborhood. It's classified as one of Philadelphia's most prime addresses. One bedroom, 1.5 bathrooms, 850 square feet, penthouse, $22.85 a month. You have 24-hour security, 24-hour front desk, 24-hour maintenance. The list of amenities that come with this are enormous. If you're on the 24th floor, you can actually see the Atlantic Ocean. The point I'm making is that if that's the price of an apartment, a penthouse apartment in a really desirable location in Center City, Philadelphia, and it's comparable to the price of our affordable housing that's being proposed here in downtown Basalt, we have a problem with affordability. We all know we do, but this really highlights that we do. And I just don't quite understand how we can move forward in that sense when, if you work backwards, somebody has to make nearly 6 figures to live in a one-bedroom apartment unless they're going to start sharing with multiple other people, and I'm not sure that's the direction we want to go. So my thought process would be, you got to go back to the developer or another developer or reevaluate the situation and say, what is affordable? Because clearly, there's no comparison between what's being proposed here, price-wise, and what you can get in like the 4th largest city in the country with a gazillion amenities. That's my point. I'd like to leave this. If anybody wants to look at it, you might be shocked. And if you're not shocked, that's part of the problem. Thanks.
That's a nice apartment, but you'd still be in Philadelphia. W.C. Fields, that's city's well-known. Thank you, Greg, for the comments, though. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to address council tonight? Come on up, please.
Hello, my name is Chris Lentz. I live at 75 River Oaks Lane, which is near Valley Lumber, if you're unfamiliar with it. I've been a Basalt resident for 48 years. I've lived in River Oaks for 31 years. This is the second time in 10 years that I've asked the town of Basalt to help me with a problem in my neighborhood. And my problem is riverfront. It's a riverfront issue. It's an environmental issue about clearing riparian vegetation and building man-made structures directly along the riverbank. Our subdivision falls in Section 16 regulations of the Municipal Code of Basalt, which is the environmentally sensitive area package. My neighborhood is in violation of every paragraph in that package of requirements. I've tried to go through what I thought were the correct and orderly channels to get to a resolution. I've met with the towns, with Ryan and James from the zoning department a couple of times now. I feel that I've really stalled out in trying to get an enforcement in my neighborhood that's of any value. In 2010, the town came down, gave it a look through, and the enforcement was a set of suggestions, nothing that was required to be done. In the last year, 5 to 6 homes in my neighborhood have changed hands. We have a whole new group of neighbors and a whole new group of attitudes in my neighborhood. And with the poor examples set by my neighbors in the past and the expectations of the new neighbors, we've had quite a bit more, for lack of better terms, destruction or disruption of what's supposed to be going on down there. So the reason I'm here is I don't know if any of you even know what's going down in my neighborhood. I know it's probably not top of your list of importance, but I would like to ask you all for a little help in getting something done down there that is of value, that will put an end to what's going on down there. I've been told by Ryan that, yeah, they want to do something, but what I believe needs to be done, they're not willing to do, and that's to make the offenders remove the offenses and revegetate what's there. I've had Rick LaFaro from the Roaring Fork Conservancy down there many times to look at it, and he agrees that none of it should be there, none of those infractions. So the only way that those things can be allowed to be there is to get an exemption from the city council in an open meeting. It takes a vote of 5 out of 7 affirmative votes to allow, I'm searching for the word, an exemption from the regulations. Not one thing that's down there has ever come before any of you folks or our homeowners association. It was just done with no permitting whatsoever from any organization or any enforcement agency. So I hope you can tell me what I need to do to get something to happen. I'd like to invite all of you at any time to contact me. I'd like to leave you my business card. I would love to have you come down and see what is going on and see what your opinion of it is. I know that one of the main influences in Basalt right now, or in the recent past, has been the environment, and we hype our fishing and everything else. There is a public fishing easement through my neighborhood. It gets very little use, but it's there for everybody, anybody. So I think it's something that you might want to put a little restriction on what's going on down there.
I'm sorry, Chris, you're out of time here, but this is obviously an important topic. But you know, you've exhausted your time.
I understand. So. I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I'll be back.
But I think as you understand.
I'll be back every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But one last thing, if I may. If a position on the Planning and Zoning Committee comes up, I'm interested.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you know your remedy is with the staff. It's not with the council on this until we actually see something. So, at any rate, that's, anyone else like to address council under general public comment on any item not on the agenda? Okay. We have any call-ins?
No, we don't have anyone that has called in, and if you text 970-379-1514 if you have a problem, I know the mayor would let you speak afterwards, so I think we're good.
Great, thank you very much. Having our next order of business then is to hear from council comments. So anyone want to comment or provide a report?
I'd just like to give a brief update on the water or the invasive species inspections up at Rudai that we help fund along with all our local communities. They performed over 5,684 inspections this summer, conducted over 200 decons of boats from foreign waters, and we stopped 19 boats with mussels from entering Rudai. So money well spent.
Wow.
And it's a great program that we support that helps protect not only Rudai but the other rivers that it's feeding.
Excellent.
Ryan,
Good news.
not to put you on the spot, do you remember, was that higher or lower than last year on the number of boats that they found mussels with?
It's right in line. I think it
Okay.
might be 2 more than last
Okay.
year, but I don't have that 100%.
So kind of consistent, a little consistency between years.
Yeah, basically consistent.
Okay, thanks.
No problem, thank you.
Any comments? Anyone else want to? I would like to just say, did you get your hand up?
I did.
Okay, go
No,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, excuse me, the first meeting of the Climate Action Collaborative is tomorrow in Avon. So just giving y'all a heads up. I think it's gonna be pretty procedural, electing a chairperson and a vice chair and kind of figuring out what our course of action is gonna be, but we'll see.
Good to know, thanks. Just comment, I have received lots of communication, mainly emails, some texts, some shanghaiing, I would say, in the grocery store, relative to our new entry sign at the east entrance to Two Rivers Road on Highway 82. And a lot of angst, a lot of consternation about the design of the sign. And I just want to the extent folks are watching in or listening, just please be aware that this is a Basalt Chamber of Commerce enterprise. It's a work in progress. It is not completed. There are lighting improvements that are going to be made, and I think they're continuing to evaluate the sign, and they're going to make improvements as we go along. But I've just had a lot of commentary about the sign. So roughly half, this is the state of democracy, roughly half of these comments say that the sign is too big, and then the other half say, it's too small, you can't really read it. So, you know, I don't know where we go with that public comment, but I just want to make sure people know that this is not done. This is a work in progress, and improvements will be made, and it's going to evolve. So don't panic about that, about the sign. So with that, I think that we are ready to hear from the our town manager's report. Or did you have anybody? No.
Mayor, I really didn't have much to share tonight, so.
All right,
Thanks, I'll
very
pass.
good. Then that takes us to our council action portion of the agenda. First up is resolution number 43, series of 2021. This is a resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, supporting Roaring Fork School District, ballot issue 5B, mill levy override. Rob Stein, our superintendent, is here. Rob, welcome, and good to see you.
Good to see all of you. I want to just say, first off, I'm the superintendent of the Roaring Fork School District, but I'm here tonight as a private citizen advocating for an endorsement for 5B. And I also want to introduce my friend, and you all know her already, Ellen Friedman, who's joining me tonight in support.
We know Ellen.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah, and Ellen and Ellen and my wife have something in common. They prefer not to be identified with their spouses. But before I comment, I just want to also say every chance I get an opportunity to talk with you all, I just want to remark on the amazing vitality of the partnership between the school district and the town. And I'm probably not providing the exhaustive list, but the things that we're partnering on already, including housing, mental health, vaping, early childhood education, youth recreation, environmental sustainability, crisis response. And it's just remarkable to me, and I really want to thank you and express gratitude for the kinds of partnership and for the ways we found common interest and common goals and work together to achieve them in the interest of the whole community. This gentleman who just left spoke to the crux of our problem. It's the affordability of living in our community. And as a school district, we are, of 178 school districts in the state, the third most expensive cost of living school district. Aspen, not surprisingly, is first, and Summit County is second. Roaring Fork School District is third. And our state funding, due to a flawed state funding model, is in the bottom third of 178 school districts. And so it means that it's very hard for us to pay a living wage or a competitive wage to our staff members. And we've pushed every available resource we can into teacher and staff salaries. We rank 37th in the state, and that, you know, relative high ranking is due to lean efficiencies where we can achieve them, and putting all of our resources into our staff. We've also maintained small class sizes and a full range of programming, and we know that the community shares our goals in keeping those things. But we've reached a crisis point, and if we don't find a way to pay a more competitive wage to our teachers and staff members, we're going to see pretty much what we saw this fall, where we opened the school year with about 60 unfilled positions. We're having some of our bus routes having to double up because we don't have enough drivers, so that leaves children waiting after school for an hour for rides. We have half the number of substitute teachers in our classrooms as we do in a normal year, and even some of our special education and core academic course classes are you know, we don't have teachers for those classes at the moment. So I know that there are other employers also struggling. We have to go to the taxpayers to ask for a pay increase. We can't just raise our prices, and we can't do what we're seeing some of the vendors do in the valley. Sorry, we're closed for business today. Of course, we're going to stay open for the kids. So we're asking for an endorsement on 5B so that we can pay a more competitive wage for our teachers and staff members to allow them to continue working here in our schools in the valley. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions of Superintendent Rob Stein?
I got one. I just would love you to clarify what is 5B, just for the TV world.
Good question. We are asking for up to $7.7 million in a mill levy override, as I said, that would go directly to teacher and staff salaries or to directly to retention and recruitment efforts for teacher and staff. None of that money would go to senior district salaries, so the superintendent will not see a dime of that money in his paycheck, nor will any of my senior leadership team. So just to explain a little bit about how school funding works in Colorado, according to the School Finance Act, most of our funding comes from the state according to a formula. But then we're allowed to ask local voters to approve up to 25% above that per pupil funding. We've already been, we've benefited from past elections where about half of that is already being taken up, so this would max out our capacity for local mill levy funds to augment our school funding. Of the neighboring school districts, Aspen, Eagle, RE2 or Rifle, and RE16 or Parachute, we have the lowest locally approved mill levy override funding of any of our neighboring school districts, so it does put us at a disadvantage. Is that getting at what you were asking?
So that's, yeah, so you will be able to adjust the mill levy to the degree that's necessary to reduce the predetermined sum, $7 million to?
It would be up to $7.7 million. That number might change a little just because there's still some variables undetermined in the final student count this year. The official student count is underway this month, and so depending on how the state estimates our projections, and that 7.7 is based on their projections. When I looked on October 1, we were 20 kids off of that projection out of 5,000 some. So there will be a little margin where it might change, but not much. But that's it. We will have maxed out our capacity to go back to voters for future mill levy overrides, probably for decades.
Great. All right. Any further questions for you? All right.
How much would this allow you to give teachers?
Our goal is to get every employee group, teachers and other staff groups, into the top third. And remembering that we're the third most expensive school district in the state, top third is maybe competitive. It's not, an overwhelming amount. And we think that we'll be able to achieve that goal. We're looking on average 10 to 12% increases, but what we're gonna have to do current market research with each employee group to determine, where we're getting. But every analysis that we've done says we can achieve that top third in averaging across all employee groups about 10 to 12%.
Additional questions for Rob? Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you coming.
You asked all the questions that were in the long version, so thank you for
Okay.
for asking those and giving
Do
me
you
more
want
time.
your assistant to make any comments?
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I know some of you have young children
You want to come up
at
with a mic
home,
and pick you up?
but, I would just say, what's obvious, that a strong school district equals a strong community. So whether or not you have children in the district or not, I hope you will see that having strong schools is important for all of us as homeowners, business owners, however you participate in the community. I can't think of anything I'd rather give my money to, and our youngest, after this year has only 3 more years in the school district, but this is as important as it gets. So we hope we have your endorsement. Thank you all for all your work.
Thanks, Ellen.
Okay, well, do we have, I move to approve resolution number 43, series of 2021.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded, and we can approve this by voice vote. So I would ask that all those in favor of supporting resolution number 43, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And no no's. That was a very loud aye.
That was a wonderful eye. Thank you very much.
So, next order of business. Thank you guys for coming. Next order of business, resolution number 44, series of 2021. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, in support of ballot issue number 3A to approve the Basalt Forward Program. Ryan Mahoney.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this resolution is in support of 3A, which is the town's initiative to start the implementation of our Basalt Master Plan. And so we have 3 projects contemplated as part of the ballot measure, and those include $2 million toward green projects, $6 million ultimately toward affordable housing, and about $9 million or so towards the Midland Avenue Streetscape project, which also includes the utilities going through there and addition of broadband. So really exciting projects. We heard from the community during the master plan process that these were of priority to the town, and the way that we would end up paying for these is through a continuation of a current mill levy. So when you get your ballot, you would see that it is not a tax increase. And so by approving this, we just continue the same level of tax, but then we can accomplish these projects that were found to be important for the town. And we did utilize this summer the help of a citizen committee and basically weeded through a number of projects. Also included in those were our facility needs study results. That had a number of projects for the town, but at the end of the day, the council decided, after taking the recommendations from the Capital Needs Committee, that the affordable housing, the green projects, and Midland Avenue Streetscape would be the preferred projects to forward for now.
Good, concise summary. Thank you. Questions, comments? David Knight.
I'm just excited to hopefully get some of this stuff underway and, we went through a long process, one more hurdle to get over. It reflects kind of what the community, what the committees, what all of us inputted, and I'm just excited that we're almost there, and hopefully we can get there, and thank everybody who's been a part of it.
Well said. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Okay, then I would ask if there's a motion to approve resolution number 44.
Mayor, I move the town council approve resolution number 44, series of 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Hearing none, resolution 44 passes. So next order of business is item 6C, resolution number 45, series of 2021. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving an agreement with Tree Farm RFV LLC regarding the installation of fiber optic cable in the Highway 82 right-of-way. So, Catherine, there you are.
Thank you all. At your last council meeting, you were initially briefed on this project. Ryan discussed it with you. But this is to remind you, this is a partnership project with the Tree Farm for the installation of conduit on the south side of Highway 82 for future fiber optic utility. It will run from Elgibella Road to Original Road. As you'll recall, the developers of Willits and the Tree Farm had an obligation to install some fiber optic conduit for the exclusive use of CDOT so that they can better time their lights through that section. So it was really just for the benefit of CDOT themselves. The town is seeking to add on to the project to just add some empty conduit that would be available to future internet service providers and for the benefit of the town in the future. What we've attached is a draft resolution and agreement that would solidify that contract with the Tree Farm developer. They'll be managing the project, and Heil Construction has a contract to do the work. The costs haven't changed since Ryan presented the project to you last week. So as I'm sure you saw in your packet, there's the estimate from Heil for the work itself. The town's portion of some other costs, some surveying, engineering, and potholing that has already been done by Heil, and then additionally a 10% contingency for any unforeseen circumstances we may run into along the way. Right now, we had in the budget for this year $240,000 for the work. This does exceed that initial budget amount, and town staff, Christy, has identified some RETA funds that will be able to cover that difference in cost. So if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer any. Oh, I guess I would just add, we did submit for, we've initiated a permit application with CDOT and are waiting on that, but that's in process, and we haven't heard any questions at this point, and they have acknowledged receipt.
Okay. Questions, Catherine? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I am a little bit confused by this. So how much of this is the town paying?
So I can answer that. So
Okay.
As Catherine mentioned, it's a shared project between the Willits developer and the Tree Farm developer, okay? And we set out with the money to do just the conduit and fiber for the CDOT portion, and that's paid for. The Willits developer gave us $130,000 basically toward that effort. And so the town is looking at adding some more conduit in there so that we have the ability to run our own fiber in there to expand the network within town. And so that cost difference on the contract, sorry, I don't have it open. I was just
$20,192.
Yeah, so we would be paying that difference there. So no, it's actually the total town share is 274. So if you subtract the 130 from that, that's our total amount.
So what is the tree farm paying?
The tree farm is paying, I think, that upper portion there of 483,000 minus.
What page are you on, please?
Sorry, 2 of 2.
Page 36 here. 35 and 36 in your packet.
Thank you.
So, Catherine, are you able
Yeah,
to
let me speak to that a little bit more. So it's admittedly, there aren't clear totals for each party, but in the first items 1 through 22, there's some items that have TF or TOB after them. So TF is the portion that should be handled by the tree farm. So that's 80,000 plus 67 plus thousand. And then otherwise, the tree farm will handle 66% of the remaining shared costs, which are items 29 through 210. With one minor clarification that item 30, the type 4 pull boxes are for exclusive use by CDOT, so they're paying 100% of that item. Otherwise, the town has committed to a third of the shared costs. And then, as I mentioned, those items 11 and 22 will be our responsibility, and otherwise a tree farm. So is that clear? I know it's a little bit jumbled.
And then CDOT's paying a portion as well?
No.
They're not?
Well, they're doing the
Covering their
conduit.
boxes.
They are,
Yeah, they'll pull the conduit, but it was a developer obligation, so that was worked out during the entitlement process.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
then, and then they'll pull the fiber and do the final, hooking up of all that. So.
I had a question about the sort of inspections and how will this work? Who does Heil Construction report to? To Tree Farm? Did they report to us for our portion, or do we just reimburse Tree Farm and they will pay Heil? Or do we have a direct relationship with Heil Construction on this? No.
That's the beauty of this, actually, is that we have someone else managing the project.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that we'll just say, best of luck to you, goodbye, we'll be on, I'll be on site and touching base with them and making sure things are proceeding.
We're satisfied that we'll have proper inspections and reporting
Yeah.
from the contractor.
Our portion is fairly straightforward with, just conduit installation.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to that, luckily, so.
I would imagine that CDOT would take an interest in
Yes,
the
yes.
fiber that they will, or the conduit that they will own as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Mr. Mayor, just one more point. The agreement does specifically give the town the right of inspection and to be made aware of status updates and otherwise get whatever information it needs to evaluate the progress of the project. That's specifically set out in our agreement.
Okay. Very good. Questions, comments, a motion for approved resolution number 45?
Mayor, I move the town council approve resolution number 45, series of 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Resolution 45 passes. So, Christie, we've come to the point that, in the evening that we've all been waiting for.
Yes, we have.
The
And I'm very excited to
scintillating
start it.
presentation of our 2022 budget.
We had big plans for a band and everything.
I know it.
Christy's so excited.
We're out there, but
There's fireworks going off, right?
Football music, I was like, gosh, this is gonna be so exciting. Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Betty?
Are we gonna be able to see the fireworks from here?
Catherine's so excited she's taking off as fast as she can.
There are some that just don't understand.
The bigger the numbers and the smaller they are in the spreadsheet, the happier Christie is, actually.
Yeah, that is somewhat true. Let me go ahead and open this really quickly for you. And I'm just gonna go ahead and back to here and then
share screen so we can do that. Okay, fantastic. So I'm gonna kind of tag team, the presentation. A lot of the presentation really to start, is, gonna be, a verbal conversation about just the strategy around this budget. And just, I mean, I am really and truly super excited about this budget because it's really the culmination of a lot of different councils that has come to this level of capital construction that's being recommended. We talked earlier about the Basalt Forward 2030 process. Before that, we had the master plan that was implemented with Susan's team and everybody in 2019, 2020. That really kicked off all of this conversation and discussion with our constituents and with the councils. And now we see this all coming to fruition and really starting to move forward on a big scale over the completion of 2021 into 2022 budget. So, so that's the most exciting part of this budget is really the capital is unprecedented that we're looking at spending and looking at assuming that the bond election passes. Now, if it does not, and that would be for the Midland Avenue Streetscape project, for everybody's remembrance, and the green initiatives, and then also affordable housing. So if those are not going, if that does not pass, then we would have $9 million that would not be included in our budget. So I would take that out before first reading as well. And then we would also have to revise our bond fund for the repayments if it did not pass. So just wanted to let you guys know the assumptions. So the $19 million that we have in capital construction on this budget is inclusive of an estimated $9 million to move forward those projects for Midland Avenue, affordable housing, and green initiatives, which starts with a lot of design work for Midland Avenue and affordable housing options that we would be pursuing potentially, and some green initiative options that we've already started to work on that we're going to look at pursuing into next year. So that would be the total sum of those. The other things we were looking at is for this year, I want to note, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of reeling a little bit backwards, but the community input throughout this process for the budget, looking at the master plan and that huge process in prioritizing the top 13 capital items and non-capital items for the town. And then, you know, the town moving forward on things on those, as well as then the facility needs study that was completed for 2021. And into the capital needs committee to talk about the facility needs study and master plan and talk about some prioritizations that led to a recommendation to council has really culminated this budget and the priorities that are lying within it. So that's why it's really exciting there. Let's see what else I was going to say. The other thing I want to note too is even though we're moving forward at a pretty fast clip on trying to accomplish some of those prioritizations that have been identified by council and by our community, we still have over $50 million in needs, in capital needs that we still need to address in the town. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think that this really takes a good chunk at it with using multiple different financing sources to do that. So really exciting there. The other thing I'm going to note as far as a general theme of the budget is that we've really, as we've talked, I mean, with the conversation with the school district and others, affordable housing is a resonating theme in this town. And it's a problem. And so recruitment and retention of the town staff is a critical item of importance. And so we've included a recommended 5% cost of living adjustment for our town staff, as well as increasing the health insurance option by 2%, roughly $13,200 to $13,500 per year annually. So those have also been included in our budget. We have the addition of one additional staff position in a building department, but we've really, other than that, even with the growth we've seen, we've tried to maintain the status quo and trying to accomplish these capital projects as well. And looking at that balance between recurring costs year over year and one-time costs. The one-time capital costs, you have to look at things like bonds to repay those and to be able to use for those kinds of projects because they're one time, and the recurring costs that would be paid for, such as from sales tax and those types of revenues that are recurring, our staffing and those kind of things. So we've really worked hard, even with all of the capital needs and things we've included in the budget, to make sure that the budget is still balanced on a recurring basis. Okay, so we have some one-time costs in there, but it's balanced on our general fund on a recurring basis, and I'll show you that as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and start to move down. Now, our budget process, or our budget document. Now, we've got in the front of our budget document, we have our strategic work plan draft that Ryan's put together and had some conversation about. And the reason why that's always put in the front of our budget document is it really is meant to drive what is in our numbers. So having that at the front of our document is part of our culture, I guess you could say. Thank you. No, that's perfect. Did you want to mention anything else with that, Ryan, or?
Yeah, sure. I think, Christy, you touched on it, just the budget being reflective of what we're hearing from the council, what we're hearing from the community. Over the last few years, we've done a lot of hard work to utilize our committees. Our committees have come through and presented ideas and brainstormed and had those discussions with council. So that's reflected in this work plan here. Of course, Basalt Forward 2030 was a big part of that. That's going to be a very big lift for us. So we're really, carving out some of that effort in this work plan. But I think what we're seeing here is a reflection really of some of these documents, some of the things that we heard from the community in the master plan, the facility needs study, and then the subsequent feedback from the Capital Needs Committee on that. And so it's just, I think it's been a work in progress, and it's just nice to see this document ultimately reflecting a community will, a council will, and then all the words on the page that you see there reflected in the numbers that you see in the budget. So we're making sure that we have funding for those things. So it's a lot of work. It's a heavy lift. But I think that it's been worth it, because I think that kind of transparency that's built in here just allows even the layperson to pick up this document and understand the budget. So thanks.
Thanks for that. Then we move into the numbers, the real meat of the budget document. Although I just have to say, even as a numbers person, I love that we have a fully aligned budget with our goals, because we really should have those outcomes for our community and be held accountable to those things, because that really just builds that trust and transparency, just the depth of the accounting. There's something behind the numbers, and that's really what our strategic work plan, our Basalt Forward process, all of our capital needs committees, and all of our communities really represent for this community, is that depth of the numbers. That we have those processes in place that really get that feedback from our community as well. We incorporate a lot of miscellaneous items in here, such as the budget calendar. That just shows that we've got a pretty robust process. Just briefly, this is really a bottom-up built budget. Besides the strategic work plan that helps to drive that, the department heads start with their budget items and conversations and discussions with the strategic work plan items that Ryan puts together as well, and we build that from the bottom up in talking to those department heads, because they're the feet on the street. And there's full transparency there. They have, behind each one of our budget items and dollars, we have detail on those budgets so that they can understand exactly what was budgeted at the beginning of the year. We've just got a really robust and good process of transparency and accountability internally as well. That's important to remember. Okay. All right. So then we get to our fund balance. Now, what is a fund balance? For those that are not the financial people out there, our fund balance is really a measure of our fiscal health as an organization. And it tells us how much, not only how much cash we have in the bank, I mean, that's just one part of a fund balance, is your cash flow. It really shows you to make sure how are you doing in relation to the monies that you have available, how big your budget is, how much risk that you're putting in your budget by how big or small your fund balance is, are you using the money you have effectively, all of those kind of questions. So it's always a balance, right, with your fund balance. It's not how much money you can, put in your fund balance, but it's more about how you're utilizing that funding as well. And so this page on the fund balance analysis really works to show that to the council and to the public. So we've got two main funds we really focus in on our fund balance. The one is our restricted fund balance, which would include things like post, like our tobacco tax, like our lodging tax, all of those kind of things are included in there. And you can see that we're spending that down. 2020 is our actual audit, was at 6.3 million. Then we're in our projection down to 5.15 million. And then in our budget down to 2.7 million. A lot of that is spending the monies for the Basalt River Park project through post, but there are other expenditures obviously as well. We've got some more detail later in the budget on that. Okay. So then when you look at your general fund, and when I talk about a general fund, that is the general fund is used for all your operations, all your miscellaneous stuff. It's kind of the heart of the finances of the town. There are three main parts of the fund balance. The first part is your TABOR and unspendable, which is your legal restrictions on fund balance. The second part is the committed or our minimum fund balance policy. Much to the credit of this council and Finance Advisory Board, there was a minimum fund balance policy passed where it was 40% of the average of the last 3 years' budgets would need to be put in a committed line item within our fund balance. And that's just to make sure we're being fiscally responsible with how much we're spending of our fund balance, okay? And then we're looking at our unrestricted fund balance. Now, that is also being spent down. Most of that spend down between 2020 and 2022 is our public works facility purchase that we'll talk about a little later. But we still have in our 2022 budget roughly 2.2 million available. And now, if you remember with Midland Avenue, the town is looking at putting in up to 2 million of that, and then plus some grant monies towards Midland Avenue to help value add that project, and that's where that monies would come from, okay? And then if you go down the page, I'm not gonna go through a lot of these items, but all the big expenditures and uses of fund balance and how much is operational is lined out there for everybody to see, so you could kind of see some of the funding mechanisms we're using for some of these expenditures. For 2022 specifically, we've got the Phase 1B portion of our public works facility. 750,000 of the estimated 950,000 for that project would come from our general fund. And then another large project we're looking at moving forward, out of our general fund is the police land purchase, which we would, pay for using, COPs as a funding source. Because that just is too big of a chunk for a $10 million budget to absorb, and still continue with all of the essential services we need to provide. Okay. So there's another part of the budget, just we'll go through in just a minute, is the water fund. One thing that I'm going to talk to Finance Advisory Board about, and we're looking at potentially recommending, is a 7.5% increase on water rates. And I know we need to talk a lot more about that. This has just been introduced now. But what the reasons for that are is that we haven't seen a water rate increase for 3 years now. And when we're looking at our financial information for our water fund, it's just really important to make sure that we are not deficit spending in that fund, and we have the monies available and needed for the capital construction and repairs for our pipes and for all of our water infrastructure. And that's what we're really trying to make sure that we're reasonably doing there. Okay. So then we go into the summary of all funds on our budget. I keep joking and I say, well, I'm not going to add one fund per year to this, but we've added a few funds over the last couple of years for fiscal transparency and accountability for our public, for our council. So those are the list of all the funds at the top. We're looking at budgeting for 2022. And we're adding what we're putting in here as a building fund. We might end up calling that the capital construction fund or something a little bit different. But the intent of that fund is to be able to really transparently account for all of those different projects we have within our Basalt Forward 2030, if that does end up passing. So that's the intent of that, is just for full fiscal transparency for council and for our community in that in those bond proceeds. So that would be the reason there. When you look at your general fund, there's a change in fund balance there of $842,000. That is not a recurring change in fund balance. That's really for the public works facility, that $750,000 we talked about in the prior page. So that's not going to lead to an ongoing deficit, and we do have the funding available, as we talked about in our fund balance on the prior page. Restricted fund, we're using $2.4 million this year for capital funds, and all this is also going to be included in your capital improvement plan, 5 years, which is at the end of this document. Okay. Let's see. Our water fund, as I've noted, we're looking at a 7.5% rate increase, which is included in these numbers. We're still looking at a $110,000 deficit in that fund. We're just asking for what we think we absolutely need. Okay. The next couple of pages, there's a lot of department level detail in there that we don't need to go through, but if you have any questions, let me know on that. But we budget everything is accounted for by department, and that's how we manage our budget. We can't go over our budget by department, so that's why we manage it that way. And then plus it helps with the management. For example, Boyd gets public works budget, so that's just how we split that up internally as well for management. And then the orange always denotes the restricted funding sources. I have it a little color coded on here. We have some pie graphs in here about our percentages. We receive 57% is going to be received in the general fund on sales tax, but we've got other financing sources. That 1.8 million of the 2,088,000 here is for COPs. If we do end up finding that police facility land purchase to make. And we've got our restricted funding has a similar picture with sales tax. 59% is sales tax funded through our restricted fund. And then some percentages for our general fund for expenditure side of things where our departments land. Municipal buildings is higher just because of the land purchase that we're including there, that 1.8 million. So that kind of throws that number off for 2022. Okay. We also, as you see, this is a pretty, I'm just going to note, it's a pretty robust budget document. It has a lot of information in here for our public, and it's really meant to be that way. We had some questions a few years back with restricted funding, so we put all of the restricted funding sources and how we can use those funds in the document so people could see that transparently. So it's really, this whole budget document is built for transparency for the public and for you guys. We also then have some restricted funds conversation, so you could see by each restriction how much we have available after you see all of the intended uses for the fund, and then transparently you can see over to the right in the notes section exactly how we're utilizing those funds. So once again, a very transparent budget. So it can answer any question you want. I'm not going to go through every single number. I bet you guys are sad.
I bet you're sad.
Come on. You guys are killing me. So, and then we've got, so for each one of our revenue accounts in our general fund and our restricted fund, we've got all of those statistics and information there available, including prior years. So not going to belabor that because it's just a lot of information. And then we've got the by department information and got salaries separated out and then non-salary items for each one of the types of expenditures. So full transparency. Really awesome. We're doing on green funding, $530,000 in that budget. Including the 130,000 for the downtowner talked about in the work session. So really excited about that. 360,000 in arts funding through restricted funding. So very exciting on those strategic work plan items. And then, so I'm not going to belabor any of these other budgets, but they're all there for your reading enjoyment and for, just maybe if you need to fall asleep some night.
Some night?
Oh, you guys are killing me. I should have started with the other music. I should have done some sort of Super Bowl music. It would have been really cool.
You can do that, we have to approve this, coming up. You have time.
I gotta keep you guys awake.
Yeah, you have time.
Oh, that's fantastic. I gotta talk to the tech team.
I have a top hat you can borrow if you want to do like a song and dance.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Love it.
There is a Colorado statute that requires us to provide approval on the same day in which it was presented. I'll just remind you.
That is awesome. Okay, moving on to the next page. We've got a lot of information on our bonds, on our HOA fund, our billing fund. So it's just all there. I will note, and let's see here. A lot of this is for the public's consumption as well. I did a recurring discussion on the water fund. For how much are we anticipating with the 7.5% rate increase that we would continue to deficit spend, assuming 300,000 capital items, and it would be 132,000. We think we could cover that with water tap fees on a couple of these larger developments over the next couple of years. So you could see that we're just asking for exactly what we need, nothing more on that, trying to be as minimal as possible, but still being responsible. And then we get into the capital improvement plan. So that goes out, actually goes to 2026 here. And it shows you on the summary page exactly where the different funding sources are coming from for the 19.7 million we have budgeted for this next year. So the 9 million, like I said, of that is from the building fund. And then here is our additional facility needs that have been identified from our master plan process, as well as our facility needs study.
Can I make a comment on this really quickly?
Absolutely.
So if you remember, in last year's budget, we had a similar page to this, and it was, we had coined it the capital vision. And so that was right at the start of this organization really being able to start looking forward at a lot of those items that we, again, had identified in the master plan. And then since that time, we've done the facility needs study. This year we've taken a step since then. So it's gone from vision to partial reality with the efforts we've made with Basalt Forward 2030. So as you can see on this, the first three items up there of the $58 million that have been identified as needs, we have a good chunk of it that's taken care of in Basalt Forward 2030. We've also got the police department land purchase in there, which we have a plan for, and then the public works facility as well. So there are remaining items on there, and I think for what we were looking at, we wanted to keep those at the forefront. I think it's important that people see, as we see increases in sales tax dollars, it's easy to draw a conclusion that the town is flush with money, so I think they're taken care of. But our needs just far exceed what that additional sales tax money looks like. And the good news is, with those additional sales tax dollars, we are reinvesting it into the community. So when Christy talked about that early on in her presentation, those are those reserve dollars that build up, but we've been consistently spending them down. A lot of that has to do with deferred maintenance over time and just aging out on facilities and things, but then also new and fun projects that have been identified by the community. So I think that's just a really important thing to keep in mind, that we're listening to the community, we're making progress, we've still got a ways to go, but we wouldn't be asking for an additional allowance for bonds, if there wasn't these identified needs, and then really trying to be responsible with those additional monies. So we're putting it into things that ultimately benefit the community. So that's what this page is all about. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. There's a lot of detail on the capital improvement plan. It's very well thought out, not only from a prioritization perspective, but we included all of the information derived from the facility needs study in here. We use that information to make sure our facilities are as up to date as possible with the monies that we have available, and that we're prioritizing, our life and safety items first and foremost, and our strategic work plan items, and what's important to our council and our community. So, but there's a lot of good information in here. We also have essential service items that aren't quite as exciting, like our fleet replacements. We're now doing fleet replacement cycles, which is huge to know. That we're trying to keep our facilities, our fleet up, and keep it safe for our staff members. But I won't belabor all of this. All the restricted funding is in orange, and then the general fund is in white, and then the building fund is in, or capital construction fund, whatever you would like to call it, is in gold. So, and then blended funding is partially restricted, is in green. So, that's all I have. unless you would like me to go through more numbers.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah.
Gary?
Well, it's one of those things where I just want to start pointing some stuff out. Is like we have some major funds that have major budget in them. One of them is the tobacco tax, and we're carrying a surplus of about $1 million. And I just want to flag that when you're looking through the budget, because it's something that is disappointing to me that that we're actually raking in the dough on that tax. But I would, the reality is we're pulling in probably about $500,000 more a year than we ever expected, and we've got to find a way to use it in that umbrella. And I think we need to make the umbrella bigger of what we're going to use that for, because it's going to be really difficult to spend, $600,000 a year on projects, and we have it budgeted to spend $600,000, and we still have $953,000 to use. So I don't know. I just when I saw that, it flagged to me of something that it's an awesome amount of money to have, and I just got to figure out ways to spend it. And I hope the chief's listening too, because to me it's like in the community we still have these major issues of Rob was saying how great we are helping them fund that stuff, but there's still kids vaping, there's still major suicide happening, there's still major issues, and so we have the opportunity to do it. I'd rather spend the money sooner than later and not wait on it. So I just wanted to flag that piece. And then the other piece that I was looking at in the budget was really trying to, I really appreciate the transparency of this budget. It is amazing how, yes, you went through it really quickly, but you gave it to us and we have already been able to digest a lot of this budget. It is an amazing how easy it is to understand for me compared to years past. So I really appreciate that piece of the puzzle, is that it's not as much of a puzzle anymore, and I like that we're breaking it down into all these different pots. And the big piece, the only other question I had, it's not really a question, it's more of a question for us as council, is we have this the green team funding. This is going to be a major component if we pass this thing. And I know we have some things on the books for this, but like unlike affordable housing, it's like $6 million. Okay, partners, and so I'm hoping that we do more than just the partnership with the school district and stuff with the green thing, because to me, as I'm leaving council and you guys, I just want you to spend it as fast as you can. I do, because the faster we spend this stuff, the quicker we get affordable housing on the books, and the quicker we can get some green infrastructure projects on the books.
Well, I'm sure there's options for partnering with the green folks too.
Yeah.
We have a lot of. I said I'm sure there's options to partner with the green funds too. Sorry, grassroots.
Relative to Gary's comment on the tobacco tax, aren't we anticipating another maybe funding or grant cycle with Hope Center and with Focus Kids and some of the other entities that under our rubric of mental health that we've been funding?
Yeah, we are. So we did a 3-year commitment to the Hope Center and a 3-year commitment to the school district. And we did $150,000 a year to the Hope Center. And that basically offers counseling services, made available to, every business owner, community member. And, that might be a way to utilize those resources to, cast a broader net. And then in the school, what we're doing is funding a counselor in the elementary school. So there is now that counselor in place. There was a a grant from Eagle County that had helped to fund counselors in both the high school and middle school. That funding is going to come to an end, and whether it gets refunded or not, we're not certain, so there may be an opportunity for us there. And then in addition, we doled out $80,000 in grants at a clip of $10,000 apiece to nonprofits that, are doing service mostly for kids in school, lots of different programs, but then some for adults as well. So some counseling, some abuse type things, and so I think there's a way to step that up as well if we so desire. So this has been a bit of an iterative process, just because there was that unexpected revenue coming off of this, and it grew in the last year. So I think we've managed to come up with a pretty good program so far, and staff will be coming back to council with some ideas for that in the coming year.
Great, thank you. Brian?
I just have a quick question on the water fund. I know even if we raise rates at 7.5%, we're still deficit spending. I know we're not trying to tax the people to death, and water's really expensive, but is there thoughts of raising it even more to 10%?
I'll take that one really quickly. I think that as we went through the budget, we felt that the 7.5 was a reasonable amount, just knowing that we had some money coming in, which is admittedly one-time money from development. And just to back up really quickly to benefit of the public, the water fund is an enterprise fund. So really it does not depend on taxes at all. In fact, we cannot spend taxes to support that fund. So it has to be supported through fees, and if grants are available, you can certainly do that. But one of the things that we have in the work plan this year is to look at a water infrastructure study. We did one about 10 years ago. That's what we based our last increase on. And we just want to renew it, some new over 10 years. You get new infrastructure issues that crop up. And so we want to give you guys a chance to kind of look at it holistically so that you get a better idea and kind of come back and revisit it. And I think this year, for example, we had a big expenditure somewhere around $800,000 to redo probably one of the oldest lines in town. It's been a huge project this summer, just adjacent to the school down here. And so, being able to finally get to these projects was a product of that rate increase. And so, I guess my suggestion is, kind of keep it at the 7.5 for now. And then let's just get that sort of empirical data behind it before we look at a bigger increase if we had to do that. But I think the better strategy that we might want to look at is just kind of keep pace with inflation on that over time, so that you're not getting any big increases in that kind of thing. So we'll do as directed, but I guess that's sort of where we were coming from.
But that's a purely fiscally driven increase. It's not, there isn't a water conservation strategy built in. It's not like of course it's part of the inverted rate structure, so.
That's right, yeah, so we sort of incentivize the use of less water, and then of course with building systems today, they're using a lot less water, so it sort of cannibalizes your ability to get that needed funding. And in the last 3 years, where we were coming off of raising those rates, we've just seen the cost of labor, the cost of materials, and those things increase, and we've got to keep pace with it, make sure we keep clean water. And the other thing is, the rules around water and water treatment aren't static. They change over time, and there's different treatments and just standards that you're having to test for and those kind of things. So hopefully that answers your question, Ryan.
So, there's no action required tonight. This is, basically an update. I think this is a requirement for the state budgeting process, so, but yeah, I'd like to compliment you on the thoroughness and readability, understandability. This really is a very understandable document. All the schedules, fit, and, it's really well done. So, David.
I just want to give kudos to, or on the qualitative side, some of the fiscal transparency and accountability stuff in there, the estimator review, the financial risk mitigation, some of the lessons learned this year, seeing that baked into the plan for next year is a good thing. The digitization of the billing for water and other areas, looking at that, I think that's going to be a huge improvement as well. And then the electrification sprinkled throughout. I would like to continue to see, though, progress against that roadmap we saw from the green team on a recurring basis, probably quarterly or so, just 'cause that's very important for our green initiatives, so. But yeah, great work.
Thanks, sounds good.
Nice job, and just for the public's general information, this is online on the town's website.
Yes. It will be posted after tonight's meeting online, correct?
And I will say, as well, we've been working on the Budgeting Excellence Award through GASB, and last year we had submitted it. Usually takes a number of years to kind of get it through. They have pretty strict standards. We did hear back that they had accepted the form of it. So last year we got a lot of feedback on it, resubmitted it, and so now it's officially under review. So I think that's good news, and we still have a little bit of time before we get the final word. But having that award under our belt, it's a continuous thing. Just that there's that recognition from what ends up being a national organization for really putting your numbers together in a meaningful way that, again, is readable by the public, by the council, and people can understand where our money is coming from and where it's spent.
Great. Any further questions, comments for Christie tonight?
One quick one. What are I know we were talking about doing COPs for the police land. What do we pay on the COPs for the pool? That's the only COP we currently have out, right?
As far as our dollar repayment
Yeah, like
cost?
our service.
$459,000, I think, over 6 years. I think it was. Yeah.
The rate was 1.3 or?
Yeah, it was, in that range. You're correct, Mayor.
And I think important to make the distinction that the COPs that we used to finance the park come from post, so that restricted funding, that's what's repaying those. And then the idea with the purchase of land for the police would be that would be a general fund expense. And we'd look at that financing in a short period as well. Right now, kind of contemplating 4-year payback on that, so that we don't let it drag out.
Yeah, and that's just because of the timeline we need to look at. Actually building a facility is pretty tight.
Okay. Any further on budget? I just have one informational update before we part company. So Glenn is working on getting a mailer put together to help with getting the word out about question 3A on our ballot for November 2nd. And we're all chipping in a couple $100 or whatever you feel like you would like to contribute.
Right.
So let's.
I don't care. I got kids to feed.
So your donation should be made. Glenn, why don't you tell us what's
Citizens for 3A.
Who is it? What's the word?
Citizens for 3A.
Citizens for 3A. That's nice and innocuous. And they can be delivered to Mr. Drummond. And he has I don't know if you've seen the little draft of the flyer. These guys are making great progress on this already, so it's pretty cool. So if you could just follow up with Glenn, and we'll get this guy mailed out. And I haven't seen any polling. I looked at the New York Times today, didn't have any word on, you know, how the public was viewing this issue, so we'll have to see. We'll know when the.
Mr. Mayor, I would just say, if there's more discussion to be had on 3B and working with any issue committee, maybe do that outside the town council meeting.
Okay, very good. So with that, I would call us adjourned for this evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn, what's your been, $700?